Oh, I don't know about you, but I needed that this morning. Woo! Wow. Thank you so much, Pastor Stephen and worship team. Amen. Yes. Felt like a little preview of what is to come for all of eternity right there. That is special. Boy, I hope you're going to be in on that. I hope you know today that you are going to be in on that. You do not want to miss eternity before God, seeing Him face to face, experiencing Him in all of His beauty and glory and majesty. Wow. Don't miss out on that. So good. Hey, if you need a Bible today, please just raise your hand and our frontline team will get one into your hand. You guys look really good, by the way, here. This is our Axis junior hires ready to go to camp. And you guys, most of you have been to camps before, but boy, God does some amazing things at camp, it's a ton of fun, right? Like, it's a ton of fun. Relationships, food, activity, bumps and bruises, and all of that goes with it, right? But oh man, God does special things at camp. And so I hope you guys are ready to have your world rocked by God. I hope you come back just a little different than when you left because of that time that you are going to have with God. We look forward to hearing about all the stories. Proud of you guys for taking this big step and going to camp. In our reading through the Bible in a year, we're getting close to halfway through. You know that? 44% of the way through, according to my calculator today. We're on day 159. And so if you are keeping up and you're on 159 with us, a huge congratulations. Like, that is a really big deal. And I am certain that you have sensed how God has been moving in your life and changing you in some way, because you can't spend that much time hearing from God one-on-one and be unchanged by it. And so I am so excited for you as you've been going through. Now, if you've fallen behind or if you've fallen off the horse completely, hey, it's okay. Please hear, I know you hear us say this up here, but please hear this. Don't worry about what maybe you have missed. Think about what you have before you. You have an opportunity for the next 6+ months to be hearing from God directly, one-on-one, for 15, 20 minutes a day, whatever it is, as He has written this love letter to you, inviting you to that relationship, and you have the opportunity of completely changing your life from this point till December 31st, and I hope that you will jump on that opportunity. So go onto the website or to the Bridge app, and it'll show you how to get connected if you're not already to the Bible recap and get on this journey with us. You will not regret it. So this past Monday, just to review what we read on Monday all 8 chapters of the Song of Solomon. If it was your first time reading through the Song of Solomon, your reaction was probably like, whoa, like that's in the Bible? There's a lot of wild and crazy things in there. But basically, the Song of Solomon, aka the Song of Songs, is a collection of Jewish love poetry which tracks the love affair between a young couple through their courtship, their wedding, their marriage, their consummation of that marriage. And really it is kind of a celebration of the beautiful gift of sexual love that God has given for a husband and a wife. It really is a beautiful gift, but only when used as God intended between a husband and a wife. Some Bible scholars, by the way, also see in there some sort of allegorical relationship between God's covenant with Israel, and some see it looking forward actually to Christ's covenant with the church as well. So if you see that in there, great. You know, there's a lot of different ways to understand this book, but anyway, short little book, but we read through that. But the other place that we were reading, we're going to spend most of our time on today, and that is in the book of Proverbs. Now, I'm going to depart from my normal kind of way of doing things up here. My normal style of preaching, I guess you could say, is going to be a little bit different from the norm. And so if you really like what's going to happen today, then, hey, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but you probably won't see it again for quite a while. If you dislike the style of today, don't worry, just come back next week and it'll be kind of back to normal. But what I would like you to do is to try to imagine with me that we're entering into a Bible college classroom. All right, I know that we just kind of got out of classes, right? It's the summertime, but let's go to Bible college class. That's why we have kind of a chalkboard look here. And I've got my professorial look today with the glasses. I thought that might add a little something, maybe, but I'm at least trying to look the part. So I'll be your professor today, and we'll enter the classroom together. My goal in doing this is to give you some information that hopefully will help as you read through the Proverbs. We've still got some to come. We're not finished all the Proverbs yet. Both now and when we go back and maybe read them over and over and over again. Hopefully the information today will help our understanding, our sort of interpretation of what's going on there, and also how to apply these Proverbs, this wisdom, to our lives. So that's the big picture kind of goal out of entering into the classroom today with me. Last week, Pastor Nate talked about David's son, King Solomon, who asked for and received this beautiful gift of great wisdom from God. 1 Kings 4 tells us that Solomon became the wisest man to ever live. That's saying something, right? And then 1 Kings 4, verse 32, states that Solomon spoke 3,000 proverbs, and the songs that he wrote numbered 1,005. Verse 34 says that men of all nations came to listen to the wisdom of Solomon. That's saying something, right? People from all over the known world at the time came to hear the great wisdom that this man was speaking. And what we have in our Bibles, in this book of Proverbs, is a collection of that beautiful wisdom that was given to Solomon. We have access to it as well. It's not entirely clear if Solomon actually wrote every verse in Proverbs. In fact, some are actually accredited to others by name. But for the most part, I think he wrote most of it, and he at least assembled, the rest. So again, my purposes today is to provide you with some information about these wisdom nuggets that we see in Proverbs to aid in our understanding and application of this wisdom that is directly from God to our lives. But even more than that, I would love to get you excited about Proverbs. I would love to get you excited about this gift of this wisdom literature that we have, these gold nuggets of wisdom from God that I believe in most cases can apply directly to each one of our lives. So we're going to read some more Proverbs this coming week in the Bible reading, but also keep in mind there are 31 Proverbs, and there's 30 or 31 days in every month, and so for some people, they decide to read one proverb every day, and they get through all of the Proverbs once each month. And they do that 12 times a year. And I think this is a beautiful practice on top of other things that you might be reading in the Bible to get this wisdom in you, right? And there might be some things that you jot down and you put in places like on your fridge or something, some that even you memorize so that you've got that wisdom right there when you need it for every day of your life. So let's get excited today about what this gift that we have of the Proverbs. So let's jump in. The genre that we're talking about is, I've kind of mentioned already, wisdom literature. So the Bible scholars consider this a different form, a different genre of literature than we have been reading so far. So we've been exposed to narrative. So that's just telling the story narrative. We read that in Genesis and in Kings, for example. And then we were exposed to some poetry in the book of Psalms. But now in Proverbs, we have poetry, but it's given a different title, a different genre. It's called wisdom literature. So wisdom literature is also found in parts of Job that we already read a little ways back, and also in Ecclesiastes, which is still to come. So we can anticipate some of that wisdom literature in the weeks ahead as well. When we come across it in Ecclesiastes, it's called speculative wisdom, and it comes in the form of these lengthy monologues and dialogues which pose questions like, what is the meaning of life? And talking about the problem with good and evil, and talking about the relationship between God and mankind. So those kind of really interesting questions are talked about in Ecclesiastes, so we can look forward to that. In Proverbs, though, the wisdom literature is a little bit differently. Here in Proverbs, we find short, pithy statements offering wisdom on a wide variety of topics. By the way, there'll be some things popping up on the screens today that I think some of it might actually be helpful to jot down if you do like to take notes sometimes, because there'll be enough things that we can't really remember all of the things, and it might be helpful as we're reading through the Psalms to refer back to some of these things. So I encourage you students today to get out your notebooks and take some good notes today. And by the way, there will be a test at the end. Now, it's going to be a group test, and so you can lean on each other, so don't get too nervous. But if we have time, yes, we're going to have a test. I mean, we're going to go all the way with this whole classroom theme here. And I'll help you get the right answers. All right, so these short, pithy statements are essentially didactic in nature, meaning that they are meant to teach us something. And the something that they're meant to teach us are truths and realities from God. We will find that they are extremely practical in most cases, and they are meant to relate directly to our everyday lives. Here's what one commentator said as he summarized what the Proverbs were about. I really like this. Proverbs contains a goldmine of biblical theology, reflecting themes of Scripture brought to the level of practical righteousness by addressing man's ethical choices, calling into question how he thinks, lives, and manages his daily life in light of divine truth. More specifically, Proverbs calls man to live as the Creator intended him to live when he made mankind. One of the major recurring themes that we will find in the book of Proverbs is to highlight the antithetical relationship between folly and wisdom and folly. We're going to see that a lot. Here is wisdom, here is folly. Here's how you compare and contrast those things. In fact, sometimes the author is going to choose to personify wisdom and folly in order to highlight the contrast between the two. It may be an oversimplification here, but we could summarize the point of Proverbs this way. Hey, it would be really smart if you did these kinds of things and thought this way. And it would be really dumb if you did things this way and thought this way, right? That's the kind of thing we're going to see in Proverbs. Put another way, wisdom is knowledge, understanding, instruction, discretion, and obedience. And all of it, as Pastor Nate was talking about last week, all of it is based on the fear of God and adherence to his word. And at the same time, the opposite of that is true as well. That folly is a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding, ignoring instruction, lack of discretion, and disobedience. And then to take it one step further as you connect the dots and follow along that path, the point is that folly will bring you disappointment, brokenness, sadness, hurt, even to the point of death, while wisdom brings the opposite of those things: goodness, joy, righteousness, and life. So we want to be wise and do the things that lead to wisdom, and we want to not be stupid and follow the way of folly that leads to all of these disastrous things in our lives. Well, another key element to this wisdom literature in the Proverbs is that it makes a lot of promises. Promises. So it kind of like, hey, put your money where your mouth is, right? And it really does that. So not only is, doing this or thinking this way wise, not only is it wisdom, but it carries with it that if you do these wise things and if you think these wise ways, it brings with it these promises, these outcomes that you can count on for your life. And then the opposite side of that same coin is true as well, that if you act and think foolishly, if you don't heed the advice of wisdom, then you can count on these bad things happening in your life. It's kind of a promise that God gives both ways. And so as we go through the Proverbs and as we take them in, reading and thinking about them, we can look and find these promises and we can cling to these. Like, we can take it to the bank. This is God making promises to us. That if we act and think this way, we can count on these outcomes, these good things happening in our lives. And then the same on the negative side as well, because God does not break his promises. Here's just an example, one of many, many, many promises. Proverbs 3, verse 35. It says, "The wise inherit honor, but fools he holds up to shame." So what's the simple promise offered here? Well, if you follow this wisdom advice, you will be honored in the end. But if you ignore it and you act foolishly, then you will only find shame. Okay? Very simple one, but a good example of the promises that we find in the Proverbs. Let's continue to move on. And let's now talk about the structure of Proverbs. So we're getting real technical here, but rest assured, like, if you're not really into the technical stuff as much and you're like, just tell me what to do and I'll try to do it, right? But I really feel that this is important to look at the structure, what we can kind of look for these structural hints as to how to interpret and how to apply these wisdom nuggets. And so stick with me here. This will be kind of the bulk of the rest of our time, but if you'll trust me, I really do think that this is important, and this is maybe especially where you can take a few notes to have with you as you're going through the Proverbs. Now, in the Proverbs, this wisdom comes to us in the form of Hebrew poetry. Hebrew poetry. Now, this brings with it at least two inherent problems. Number one, it's poetry, right? Poetry, I don't know about you, some people are really into poetry, love it, they understand every poem that they read. For me, and I think others along with me, sometimes it's difficult to understand the point of poetry, right? It's a little bit more out there in the style in which it's written. Here's an example of an English poem. "Silence awakened, ever present, shivering, nestled underground. Scarcely moonlit, deeper, deeper, empty stare, dark thundercloud. You're like, wow, that is beautiful. That is just, oh man, I mean, the emotion and the brilliance of the author here. You know, just one problem, I have no idea what he's even talking about, right? And that so often is like the problem that I have with poetry a lot. It's like, what in the world does it even mean? It sounds nice, you know, I'm sure he's good at what he does, but I don't get it. So poetry is difficult enough in English. But the second problem is this is Hebrew poetry, ancient Hebrew poetry. And if we took a poll, I don't think there's many in the room today that know how to read and understand ancient Hebrew text. So, as you can imagine, like if something like this, for instance, were being translated into a different language, it would probably become even less understandable than it is in English. And so our English translators, of course, try their very best, but they are not inspired by God, right? The translators aren't. It's inspired, it's an original. So they try their best. They're leaning on wisdom from God in order to bring translation, but it just, by the very nature of it, there's going to be some things that might be lost in translation. And it just becomes even more difficult, I think, to understand sometimes. So those are some of the challenges. It's not as easy as reading and understanding narrative, right? A story. Like in Genesis, we kind of, like, you know, it doesn't matter what language you translate it, you kind of get the gist of what's going on as you tell a story, a narrative, right? Biblical Hebrew poetry, a little bit different. But that's why we dive in to look at some of these structural issues, and I think it's going to help us in our understanding, all right? So let's dive into it. So the basic structure of the poetry, this Hebrew poetry in Proverbs, is parallelism. Parallelism. You've probably heard of that, you know, in English when we talk about poetry and other things. So to help with interpretation, we need to look at the structure of parallelism. Look for it, identify it, and it will help us. So let's look at 5 main types of parallelism in Hebrew poetry that I think will help. The first one is synonymous parallelism. Synonymous parallelism. So this is where the second line says basically the same thing as the first line, but it just says it in a little bit different way. Does that make sense? So let's take a look at an example. Proverbs 18, verse 7. It says, "A fool's mouth is his undoing, and his lips are a snare to his soul." Both of these lines, the first and second line, are basically saying the same thing. So mouth is synonymous with lips, and undoing synonymous with snare to his soul. But when we know that the author is trying to say basically the same thing, then even if some of the things might be lost in translation a little bit and we're wondering, what exactly does that mean? For instance, you know, looking at that line of a snare, let's look at his undoing. So a fool's mouth is his undoing. So I wonder in what sense the author is saying it's his undoing. Is it like a physical undoing? Is it an emotional undoing? Like what exactly is he meaning there? Well, we can look at the parallel, realizing it's synonymous, and we see there, a snare to his soul. So I think we can kind of conclude there that, okay, the undoing is probably more of a spiritual thing. It's more an undoing of his soul. You see how we made that little connection, and it helped us kind of interpret what's going on there. So we're going to see a lot of synonymous parallelism, and it's a fun little cheat as you're trying to interpret what's going on, because you can see one that might be a little bit more understandable and relate that meaning to the other line. Okay, making sense so far? Yeah? Junior high, got it? Yeah, you guys are smart, coming off like a lot. No, some of you are like, no, I don't get it. I know, you've turned off your brains. It's okay, I understand. All right, well, don't worry. The rest is even more complicated. So, all right, the second type of parallelism is antithetical parallelism. Antithetical parallelism. Similar to the first kind, but the second line is not the same as the first. It is the opposite. It's a contrasting idea, okay? So as an example, Proverbs 12, verse 5, the plans of the righteous are just, but, so that's a key word there in understanding what type of parallelism, but, so there's a contrast here, right? But the advice of the wicked is deceitful. So we see righteous being contrasted with wicked, makes sense, and just contrasted with deceitful. So if we're not quite sure what meaning of, what angle of deceitful we're talking about, well, we can just look at the opposite thing being just, right? And so we can say, oh, I understand a little bit more now. It's deceitful from the standpoint of being unjust, because we just look at the contrast. Make sense? A little bit? All right, number 3, emblematic parallelism. Emblematic parallelism. Some of you English majors are just loving this. I know you are. Some of you business majors like me, unsure, right? Emblematic parallelism is also very common. It's when one half of the verse is a figurative illustration of the parallel line. So it could be a simile, which is, if you remember, you guys have done, similes, right? How do you find a simile? Like or as. Boom, you haven't forgotten everything. That's good. Like or as. Or a metaphor, which is similar. It doesn't say it's like or it's like as something. It actually states that it kind of, oh, yes, you got it? What? You got it. It's like you just state it like it is, right? It's like it just is something. So let's look at an example of that one. So Proverbs 10, verse 26. As vinegar, oh, there's the key word, right? I think we got a simile coming. As vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is a sluggard to those who send him. So, okay, what's it really like to send a sluggard? Maybe this means like to oversee a sluggard, or you've got a sluggard who's like one of your employees or something. What's that like? What's that like? So really it's talking to the sluggard here, like you shouldn't be that way, right? Well, it's, we all know the vinegar on the teeth kind of thing, right? It's like, oh, or you're making s'mores around. Maybe you guys will do this at camp, actually, and you'll get some of the camp smoke in your eyes, right? It's like, oh, it's like a nasty thing, right? And so it helps you understand what this sluggard is to those who send him. That's how we help interpret that. All right, let's look at the fourth one, synthetic parallelism. Synthetic parallelism. This is where the second line is similar to the first, but it actually amplifies it. It actually expands the idea of the first line. So an example of that is Proverbs 16, verse 4. The Lord works out everything to his own ends, even the wicked for a day of disaster. That word even is kind of a little hint word there. So it's saying like, hey, God works out everything for his own ends, even, like it amplifies the idea, taking it even to the extreme, even the wicked for a day of disaster. So it's working out that God is even working out a day of disaster for the wicked. It's sort of an amplified idea of the first line. All right, and the final is formal. This is the fifth and final one, formal parallelism. Formal parallelism. This is where the second line simply completes the idea that's offered in the first. Sometimes it's a condition like an if-then statement or some sort of causation or purpose, okay? So an example there would be Proverbs. Yeah, we jumped over the Psalms for some reason. Proverbs 16, verse 7, when a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, he makes his enemies, even his enemies, live at peace with him. So there's some causation there, right? From the first to the second, some consequence, I guess you could say. So it's like an if-then statement. If a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, then he makes his enemies live at peace with him. Doesn't that sound nice? All right. So we made it through. We made it through. Let me just remind you why I think this is so important. As we identify the type of parallelism that's going on here, it really can help us interpret what this wisdom nugget is and what it's really saying to me. Then I can apply it directly to my life. Now, you guys are lucky because we're out of time and we're not going to be able to have time for the test. But let me just give you the reference, okay? And then maybe you can try this on your own. The reference is Proverbs 11, verse 22. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who shows no discretion. All right, so later today, when you're at camp during your downtime, free time, or whatever, yeah, you don't really want to do this during your free time, right? You can try to analyze what type of parallelism is this? How does it help me understand what's going on with the comparison of those things? And we'll see if you can come up with something good, all right? Something to apply. Let me just give you one final word of encouragement with the Proverbs. Even as I was reading this morning, I was rereading today's, which I think was 16, 17, and 18, if I'm not mistaken. As I was reading through those Proverbs, with almost each nugget, I was like, oh, that is so good. Oh, yes, that is so true. Oh, that is such a beautiful promise to me. I mean, these really are gold nuggets that God gives us here. These truths that we can count on, these promises that he gives us. And so consider making this maybe a part of your daily Bible reading routine. In fact, I think it was Pastor Marshall, your pastor of junior high, who was telling me that he does one of these Proverbs every day and goes through it every month, right, Marshall? And so I think this is a wonderful practice. We're going to get lots of great stuff to apply to our lives. Before I dismiss you, class, let me just remind you that if for any reason you would like or need prayer today, we're going to have our prayer team underneath both screens. And a final reminder, if you weren't here during the worship night to do this, there are prayer cards under the screens in front of both of the whiteboards. And the point there is to look at the names that are there, high school, junior high, and elementary camp. And then over here is our Bridge Bible Camp that happens here. If you would just jot down a few of those names and commit to be praying for them this week for camp or in a couple weeks for Bible camp, I think God is going to answer those prayers and do amazing things in the lives of these kids. So if you get a chance to stop by there, do that as well. Love you guys. Class dismissed. See you next week. It's summertime.